Hello, everybody. I'm Travis Edrington. I'm with my third grade teacher, Pat Turner. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Really good to see you.
Good to see you too. How many people do you think you've taught over the last over the course of your career?
Well, I taught for 30 years, probably with an average of 25 students in each grade. So that's probably about 750 students.
That's quite a bit of students. Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher?
Well, I knew I wanted to do something with children. I didn't necessarily know it was going to be teaching, but I thoroughly enjoyed my career because I love children.
What all did you teach?
I have taught first grade, second grade, third grade, and I subbed for fourth grade a half of a year. Mostly in third grade, though.
Okay. What kind of education and experience do you need? What about when you first started?
Okay, for me, when I got out of high school, I went to Middle Georgia, and I got an associate degree in home ec secretarial. And then I married, and we moved to Dalton, and I worked in a school there as a school secretary. And I did half of a year for a teacher who had left and taught children. It was a small classroom, and I didn't really need a degree at that time to teach. And I didn't get my regular teaching degree until my youngest son started kindergarten. And I went back to school. I had 3 children, went back to Piedmont College and got my degree to teach. Took a couple of years. Some of the courses I had at Middle Georgia counted.
What inspired you to teach?
The children. I love children and want to help.
What was the best part of your jobs?
Again, it's the children. The sweet notes, the sweet hugs, the seeing them learn. It's like when the light bulb goes off, you know that they have learned what they were supposed to.
What was the worst part of your job?
Paperwork. Hours and hours of it. I would come home and check papers because if I asked them to do it, I felt like I needed to check. In fact, I was at the nursing home a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this woman, and we decided that I had taught her child, and she said, "Oh, you're the teacher who put the red marks on the paper." She said, "I was so impressed because nobody else ever checked my child's paper to let them know what was right or wrong."
What were your childhood dreams growing up?
To be a mother and wife.
Anything else?
Well, I probably figured out I'd have to work sometime, so I think I chose the ideal career.
Okay. Do you feel you made an impact on your students throughout the course of your career?
I certainly hope I did. I tried to let every child know that they were loved. Every child's different, and they all have special needs, and I tried to be the best teacher I could be.
What did you major in college?
It was an education major. But when I got my master's at Converse College, and then Greenville County had this program where if you got 30 hours over your master's, you got a pay raise, and they provided the courses. I had some great courses. They were all math, science courses, and science probably was my favorite subject to teach because you could do all the fun experiments with the children, and we had a good time with that.
What was life like for you growing up?
Well, I'm in my 70s, so the world has changed quite a bit. Back when I was growing up, we trusted everyone. We didn't have to worry about all the crime that's going on. Of course, I came from a small town. People didn't lock the doors. People left the car keys. People went to church. People were nice to each other. It was a great time to grow up. My parents had strict values. My father was a World War II veteran. He was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he taught me to be very patriotic. And I don't know what happened. I think everybody should still be that way.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion. And every available ambulance, everything you got to the World Trade Center.
From my vantage point, I didn't see a plane hit the building, but I did see an explosion occur. My God, I can't believe it.
What was it like for you in college?
Well, when I was at Middle Georgia, I was there to have a good time. But when I went back to Piedmont, I had a husband and 3 children, and it was a lot different. I studied for the first time and did really well, but I had to put some effort in it.
How all did you study to get you through the test and all that sort of thing?
How did I study?
Yeah, like what were your techniques that you used?
Well, my first course that I had at Piedmont was a geography course. And it was a room with a lot of people. I mean, 60 or 70 people. To me, that was big. And so I would take notes during the lectures, and then I would get the book, come home, read it thoroughly, make notes, and study the notes that I made from the book.
So no flashcards or anything like that?
Know what?
No flashcards?
No flashcards. And we didn't have internet or anything, so it was all what I could get from lectures and the book.
Okay. Were you happy with what you achieved over the course of your career?
Yes. I feel like I've made a difference in some students' lives. I don't know how many, but it's always good to hear from students, and like you, for instance. And I hope I've made a difference.
Did you ever want to go into an administrative role?
Never. I don't like being in charge of anything. The classroom was enough for me. So that's what I enjoyed.
What did a typical day look like for you?
As a teacher?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'd have to get there before 8, and I never liked to be late because children were coming into the classroom and you had to be there. I was very responsible. I would not leave my students. We were busy the whole day, doing something constructive and no downtime.
Do you feel kids learn cursive really well in 3rd grade?
When I taught it, they did, but I don't think they're teaching it anymore.
That's what I've heard, that they don't really
Yeah.
teach cursive anymore.
But that was always a fun thing to do in 3rd grade because I could do it on the board, and I'm left-handed, so that worked out real well. I could do it and I could see what I've written.
What was your favorite subject to teach?
Science.
When you were in elementary, middle, and high school, what subjects did you enjoy the most?
I'm not sure I really had a favorite subject. I probably like reading. I read a lot.
Who were your favorite authors, then and now?
Oh, well, I read a lot of different books. I like Francine Rivers. who's writes a lot of religious books that are biblically based. I like Jonathan Cahn. He has a lot of new things. I like I don't read a lot. I like nonfiction probably more than fiction.
Okay.
When American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. on September 11th, 2001, about 6,000 people were in the building. Unaware of what had happened, they used their phones to get information from the outside world and to make contact with loved ones.
I want to say how much I love you. I think I'm okay. I'm safe now, but Smokey.
The calls came from survivors,
I'm okay, all right? Want to see you? I'm going to hold you.
and they came from some of the 3,000 who never came home.
Sean, it's me. I just wanted to let you know I love you, and I'm stuck in this building in New York. There's lots of smoke, and we just wanted you to know that I love you always.
Some of these calls were recorded, and some are etched in the memories of those left behind.
No, you can stay on the line.
What was it that interested in you in teaching?
Well, I started back to school when my kids, when Bo was in kindergarten, and the hours worked really well for a mother because I would have some of the summertime off, and they could go to the same school with me, and I would know what they were doing when 3:30 came, and I could know what they were doing.
What kept you coming back to the classroom every day?
Well, responsibility. No, the children, because they were there, and a lot of children did want to learn at that time. I think that's probably still true, but
What advice would you give to somebody wanting to become a teacher?
know that every student is different. They all have their needs. Learn to overlook a lot of things and from people, and just love the children.
What was the work-life balance like being a teacher?
Well, I would always stay late. I'd be one of the last teachers to leave because there was always something to do. Bulletin boards, papers to grade, lessons to plan. And when I would get home, I'd bring papers home to grade, and I'm sure that my family didn't appreciate that so much, but I felt like it was a job that needed, if you were going to do it, you needed to do it well and do it like it was supposed to.
What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do on the job?
One of the hardest things, I think, was we had a teacher pass away when I was in Greenville, and tell my students that she had passed away because they had had her the year before.
I bet that was hard.
It was very hard.
Why did you decide to move from Metro Atlanta to here in a small town?
To get out of the traffic.
How did you hear about Stevens County?
My husband is from Stevens County, so.
Okay.
And we had lived here before. When we first married, we moved to Dalton. And when our third child was born, my husband was coaching and teaching in Dalton. We decided that he needed to make more money, so we moved to Toccoa. He went to work at Deere & Milligan, and he was on a swing shift. That was the only time in our married life that I had not worked. And when you have 3 small children and a husband working on swing shift. It's very, very hard. So he went to work at a different place, and that place closed, and we moved to Greenville, South Carolina, and we were there for 14 years. Then we moved to Atlanta and lived there for 3 years, and I taught at a school there at Fitzhugh Lee. And from there, we knew we were moving to Stevens County, and I got a job at Lula Elementary, and I was there for a couple of years teaching first grade, and we knew we were coming back to Toccoa, and so I was lucky enough to get a job where I started teaching at East Denali.
Okay.
So, started at East Denali, finished at East Denali.
Okay. Were the same teachers there from when you first started?
Some of them were. So that was really nice because I knew a lot of the teachers and I knew the school.
Can you believe that it's been 17 years since 9/11?
No, I can't. I remember when 9/11 happened, I was teaching third grade. It was early in the morning, and there was a Dr. Holcomb teaching right across from me, and she came in my room that day, which was highly unusual because we never interrupted each other, and she whispered to me that it happened, and it was really hard to finish teaching that day knowing what was going on in the world, and we didn't want to alarm the students, so it was very hard. I know one parent came and picked up our child that day.
At the top of the North Tower, 100 people were attending a conference at Windows on the World restaurant. Among them was Christopher Hanley, an executive for Radiance, a financial systems company. He made one of the first recorded calls to 911 that day.
Yeah, hi. I'm on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center. We just had an explosion.
The 106th floor?
Yes.
106, okay.
We had smoke, and it's pretty bad. We can't get down the stairs.
All right.
We had about 100 people up there.
Do not leave, okay? There's a fire or an explosion or something in the building. All right, I want you to stay where you are.
Yes.
All right, we're there. We're coming up to get
See
you.
the smoke coming up from outside the windows down?
All right, we're on the way. Just sit tight. All right, just sit tight. We're on the way.
All right, please hurry.
Christopher was our only child. He was so special.
To be able to have the 911 audio was really very important. The most emotional, poignant moment for me is when he asked him, "Please hurry," and "Thank you."
All right, please hurry.
To be able to have that
Presence of mind.
under pressure like that, I thought was just remarkable. I was really proud of him. I mean, to be able to keep that cool and request, "Please hurry." I think that was his last words.
What's one memory that has stuck with you about 9/11 after all these years?
Just the horror of it and the people on the planes, and my daughter-in-law was flying on that day, and she was flying back to Russia, and she was talking about, of course they didn't know anything about it until they landed, and she was saying when they got to Russia everybody was crying, and you know, you usually have to go through customs and things, and they just shoot everybody through, and then they told them what had happened. So I think about that a lot.
What emotions and thoughts were going through your mind as you were learning about the attacks?
It's hard to imagine that people can be so evil to hurt other people. I just can't comprehend it. I just don't understand.
following the days and months, did you follow the stories about 9/11?
Yes, I did. And President Bush was, I believe he was reading to school in Florida at the time, and he really brought the country together, I felt like. And at that time, we came together as a nation. Unfortunately, it's not that way now.
It is not. Do you know if any of your students were directly affected by 9/11?
Not that I know of, since we live so far south. I know I had a classmate who helped with the cleanup of 9/11. But that's really the only person I know.
How did the news of 9/11 affect the rest of your day?
I was kind of numb. I wanted to talk to my family and make sure they were okay. It was just unbelievable that something like that could happen.
When did you know that it was a terrorist attack and not an accident?
I guess maybe that same day they said that. I'm not sure. It's been a while. But I don't know.
How do you think America could have been more prepared for this?
Well, I guess now they we really need security. We need to make sure we know who's coming into our country. We need to know what their motives are. And with President Trump, I think he's doing a great job. And I agree, we need borders, and we need to know what's going on.
How do you think you would have reacted if you were on the plane when that happened?
I would have been scared to death.